Let's talk about the easiest way to make a narcissistic relationship work. And that's sort of an unfair positioning in this video, since I wouldn't call what I'm suggesting the relationship actually working, certainly not for you. But it is the dynamic in the relationship that is pretty much at the root of all that goes wrong in these relationships, that confuses the hell out of us, that leaves us feeling not enough or downright bad. And when we engage with the narcissistic person as though they are normal, regular, or explain basic things or give feedback, all hell breaks loose. So, what do we need to do to make a narcissistic relationship work? Well, theoretically, that would simply be to carry all the shame of the relationship. Take it all on. When they project the shame onto you, don't fight back or tell them that they are wrong or say, I didn't do that. I'm not taking responsibility for that, right? And get ahead of it by holding on to the idea that you're the problem in the relationship. And when you do that, which is not good for you, sadly, the relationship will probably have far less conflict and just keep on keeping on. It might even trick you to seem like there's no problem in the relationship, except I can almost guarantee that you're going to start to feel really sick. So what does that mean for you to carry all the shame of the relationship? Frankly, once you understand how shame works in a narcissistic relationship, you actually have it all figured out. Because it is an, if not the essential element of understanding how these relationships work. All the stuff on the outside of these relationships that drives us nuts and pisses us off, the entitlement, the grandiosity, the need for validation, the anger when they don't get all the excessive validation, the pathological selfishness, the marginal empathy, the false empathy, the superficiality. It's all of that's protection for the narcissistic person, as well as a way for the narcissistic person to cover up a much deeper problem, which is their shame. They cannot be vulnerable with that shame. It feels like the world would end if they did. So they can't feel whole with that. It threatens their narcissistic person's entire existence. The insecurity that they're not perfect, that they're not special, that they are as ordinary as everyone else, that doesn't work for them. So the shame is a cauldron bubbling under the surface. And it is often well covered by all of the posturing and the entitlement and the grandiosity and all the rest of it. But sometimes, often actually, that shame gets pinged for the narcissistic person. Their thin gold veneer gets scratched. This may happen because the narcissistic person is criticized, or their authority is questioned, or something doesn't go their way, or someone tells them that they did something that wasn't nice, or laughs at them, or teases them, or fires them, or ends a relationship with them. Regular stuff of life. And when those things happen, a person with a narcissistic personality is then reminded that they are regular, they are ordinary, and they're not perfect and not special. And the shame then comes sort of pouring out. But it doesn't just come flowing out onto the ground. No. Like a heat-seeking missile, it arcs towards the person who is viewed as the one who activated the shame. Hell, you could literally be minding your own business and innocently correct something that they said at a dinner party, and bam, I promise you, that shame is coming for you. Then you may be attacked, humiliated, reminded of your flaws, given the silent treatment, ostracized. You are shamed. In essence, their shame now becomes your problem and your burden, and frankly, your shame. Even when it's not a moment where they feel you did or didn't do something or say something, projecting their shame onto other folks is sort of narcissism 101. The narcissistic parent, for example, will allow the child to carry the burden of their projected shame. Where do you think this internalized sense of not good enough comes from? It comes from carrying the parental shame. And now, this new shame we now have, which is magnified because we're carrying theirs too, and it makes ours feel worse. To feel shame is very uncomfortable, almost intolerable for the narcissistic person. So they'll always foist it onto other people. Things like, oh, look at this team, you all suck. Or, oh, this family, my gosh, none of you would be anything without me. The narcissistic person gets to unburden themselves, and without it ever being said explicitly, in order for us to stay in the relationship, we have to carry their bag of shame. And over time, this can mean things like talking about ourselves in disparaging terms, or not putting ourselves up for opportunities, or always assuming that we are the problem. In essence, just basically holding ourselves back. Attachment to a narcissistic person means taking on the shame bag that they're willing to have you carry. And once you do that, you can continue to be close to them. It's not a great setup, but for kids, there are no other options. And if you don't understand how this works, it's an easy dynamic to get pulled into because we want to love and we want to be loved. I remember one lady telling me her story, and her telling me one day that she told her mother that she just wasn't nice and that she shouldn't tell her own daughter, so that lady's granddaughter, that she should lose weight. Her mother then launched an attack on her daughter, on the daughter who gave her the feedback, saying things to her like, well, is it really any wonder that you're divorced and never met anyone else? Well, is that what you want for your daughter? You're carrying the shame now. We need shame shields if we are ever going to give feedback to a narcissistic person. A piece of this dynamic to remember is that how other people see narcissistic people matters. They care what others think of them, and they care deeply, which is interesting. Narcissistic people don't always have great empathy for other people, but boy, do they care how they are perceived by those other people, which means that the shame is always right there under the surface. Because if they perceive that other people don't like them, instead of getting sad, the more likely response is that they will attack. So obviously I am being tongue-in-cheek when I say that this is how you make one of these relationships work, because it's really not working. If you take on the shame, which we have all done without quite knowing we were doing it, we slowly get sick, anxious, depressed, self-disparaging, we're full of dread, and we shrink and we shrink and we shrink. It's bad enough that we have to carry our own damn shame. Throwing the narcissistic persons on top of it is far too much of a burden for anyone to carry. And remember, they have way more shame than us. So we're carrying lots of heavy cargo now. And when you are able to do this well, carry on their shame, or for a long time, the relationship can actually feel like it's chugging along fine, but it's really not. You are suffering in the relationship and wonder why you feel as bad as you feel. As we grow up and recognize that attachment and love only came, and it actually meant that because we were willing to take on our parents' shit or intergenerational shit, well, that's a big eye-opener. And the grief at that point is overwhelming. So no, this is not a path forward, but it is the path that many people in narcissistic relationships take until they slowly understand what they're dealing with. And I'm hoping to make this process less slow for you, reminding you that taking on another person's shame is not love. It's subjugation. Remember that.